Right now, all across Australia, thousands of gardeners are doing exactly the wrong thing, and they don't even know it. It's May, autumn's here, and this right now is the moment where you either set your garden up for the best spring it's ever had, or you quietly sabotage it without realizing. I've made these mistakes. My neighbors made them. Chances are, you're making at least one of them right now. Because Bunnings keeps selling us the wrong stuff, nursery shelves are stacked with things that'll be dead by July, and nobody's being straight with us until today. 11 mistakes, every single one of them common, every single one of them fixable. And when you get to number 11, the one most Australian gardeners have never once thought about, you'll finally understand why some gardens just keep getting better every year, while others start from scratch every single season. Let's get into it. 11 mistakes, all of them happening right now, all across Australia. And every single one of them has a dead simple fix. Doesn't matter if you're in Queensland, Victoria, Walzer, in SW, Tassie, or the Territory. This is for you. Because these mistakes aren't about your climate. They're about habits. And habits can change. Now, this list covers a bit of everything. Plant selection, pruning timing, watering, soil, we're going through the lot. One thing I'll ask you to do before the end of this video, drop a comment below. Tell me what state you're gardening in and which one of these mistakes you've been making. I read every single comment, everyone. Alright, mistake number 1. You walk into the nursery, bright colors everywhere, cheerful little signs saying plant now, tomato, seedlings lined up looking gorgeous. And you think, why not? So you grab a punnet of tomatoes, maybe some impassions, a couple of vinca. You get home, you plant them, you water them in, and then you wait. 3 weeks later, those plants are just sitting there. Not growing, not flowering, not dying, just existing. And you think, did I do something wrong? No, you did the right thing at the wrong time. Here's what nobody tells you. Air temperature and soil temperature are not the same thing. In May, the air might be sitting at a comfortable 20 degrees, but the soil runs 4 to 6 weeks behind the air. Your soil is already cooling down, and warm season plants, tomatoes, capsicum, cucumbers, impatiens, they don't establish in cold soil. They just survive. They don't push roots. They don't flower. They don't fruit. Come June or July, they collapse. Does Bunnings know this? Of course they do. But their job is to sell plants, not to make sure your garden succeeds. The counterintuitive truth, the plants you put in the ground in May aren't the ones that give you a summer harvest. They're the ones that sit through winter, build their roots quietly, and absolutely explode come September. What should you be planting right now? Pansies, snapdragons, silver beet, broccoli, kale, spinach. These are your May plants. These are the ones that will pay you back in spring. The one rule, next time you're standing in a nursery in May, ask yourself one question. Can this plant handle 8 degrees overnight? If the answer's no, it should have stayed on that shelf until September. The moment. Picture a September morning. Your neighbors are still figuring out what to plant. And your garden, snapdragons already open, silver beet ready for the kitchen, pansies lined up like they've been there forever. That's what one right decision in May looks like. I'll do it when winter comes. How many times have you said that? I said it more times than I can count. And then winter would arrive and I'd either forget or I'd tell myself it was too late. And those perennials, the ones that looked brilliant all summer, they'd come back in spring looking scraggly, weak, and half the size they should have been, because the prune I skipped in May always showed up in September. Here's what you need to know. For perennials, the pruning sweet spot is the first 2 weeks of May. Why? Because the plant is transitioning from active growth into dormancy. But it hasn't fully shut down yet, it's still got energy moving through it. A prune at this stage gives the plant the entire winter to heal, push, new lateral growth and come back stronger than it went in. Prune in June? Too late. The plant's already in sleep mode. Cuts don't heal properly. New growth doesn't form. Come spring, instead of getting strong new shoots from those cut points, you get a confused, weakened plant that spends all its energy just recovering. The counterintuitive truth. More pruning means more flowers. I know it feels backwards. You look at a plant full of growth and cutting it back feels like punishment. But it's not punishment. It's an invitation. You're telling the plant, now is the time to renew. What needs a May prune? Lavender, shape it up before winter, but don't cut into old wood. Salvia, cut the old flowering stems back hard, open it up. Agapanthus, remove spent flower stalks right at the base. Grevillea, light shaping only, never cut back to bare wood. Rosemary, tip, prune the new growth. Leave the woody framework alone. The one rule: if a plant gave you flowers this summer, thank it, then prune it. That's how it comes back, twice as hard next year. The moment. November. Lavender in full bloom across your garden, bees working through it all morning. The smell drifting onto the veranda before you've even had your first cup of tea. That started with 10 minutes of pruning in May. Summer habits die hard. You were watering every day in December, every other day in February. And that was right, because in that heat it had to be done. But if you're still running that same schedule in May, you're quietly drowning your plants, and you won't know it until it's too late. Here's why. In May, the soil holds moisture for much longer. The air is cooler, evaporation slows right down. So if you're watering every day or every couple of days, water is sitting in the root zone, staying there. And that constant moisture is exactly what fungal root rot needs to take hold. The scenario I see over and over: someone tells me their garden looked fine in May. Then they come back in July and half their plants are dead. Root rot doesn't show up on the surface. The top of the plant can look perfectly healthy while everything below ground is already gone. The counterintuitive truth: letting your plants get slightly dry in May doesn't weaken them, it strengthens them. Roots chase moisture downward. Deep roots equal a plant that handles winter and handles the dry stretch before the spring rains, far better than one that's been coddled all autumn. May watering guide: veggie patch, twice a week, early morning. Perennial flowers, once a week, only when the soil has actually dried out. Native plants and grevilleas: almost nothing, they're already looking after themselves. Newly planted seedlings: 2 to 3 times a week, but always check first. The finger test: before you water anything, push your index finger 5 centimeters into the soil. Still damp, walk away. Bone dry, then water. That's it. That one habit alone will save more plants than any product you'll ever buy at Bunnings. The moment mid-July. Your neighbor's garden is yellowing off, looking sad. Yours is sitting green, calm, rooted, quietly building strength underground, ready to go the moment September arrives. That started with a finger in the soil. If you haven't subscribed yet, YouTube will stop showing you this channel. Not slow down. Stop. Hit the subscribe button right now. It's free. Always will be. Have a look at the fertilizer bag in your shed. What does it say on the front? For spring and summer use. Apply during the growing season. And most people read that, nod along, and then grab that same bag in May and throw it around the garden anyway, because the plants look a bit tired and fertilizer feels like the right thing to do. It's not. Not this one, not now. Here's the problem. Nitrogen-heavy fertilizer, especially the fast-release granule type, forces plants into growth mode. But in May, your plants don't want to grow, they want to slow down. They're preparing for winter. Their whole biology is shifting toward rest and root consolidation. When you hit them with a big nitrogen application, you're overriding that signal. You're forcing them to push out soft, lush, tender new growth, and that tender new growth cannot handle the cold. In Melbourne, Canberra, the Adelaide Hills, Tassie, nitrogen-fed plants in May put out fresh shoots that get absolutely smashed by the first winter frost. In Queensland, there's no frost, but there's humidity and fungal pressure, and that same soft growth is an open invitation for disease. The counterintuitive truth: the right fertilizer for May isn't about growth at all, it's about strength. What you want in autumn is phosphorus and potassium. Phosphorus drives root development. Potassium hardens the plant, builds its resistance to cold, and sets it up to push hard in spring. A plant that goes into winter with a deep root system and strong cell walls will come out the other side ready to absolutely take off. What to use in May? Bone meal, slow-release phosphorus, brilliant for root growth, totally safe this time of year. Seaweed-based fertilizer high in potassium, toughens plants up without forcing growth. Compost, always the right answer, always safe, works in every season. What to avoid? Fast-release granule fertilizers, liquid growth or foliage products. The one rule: if the label says growth or foliage, put it back. If it says root or strengthening, that's your May product. And honestly, one good compost application in May beats the wrong fertilizer every single time. The moment September. Your perennials are pushing up from the soil, strong, wide, with root systems you can feel. When you gently tug, your neighbor is replanting from scratch. Yours never stopped. They just waited, strengthened, and now they're ready. That's what the right fertilizer in May does 6 months later. Here's one I see constantly this time of year. Someone decides to tidy up the garden in autumn. They rake everything back, pull up the old mulch, expose the soil. It looks neat, it looks clean. They feel good about it, and they've just made one of the most damaging mistakes of the entire year. Mulch in May is not decoration, it is insulation. When you remove mulch heading into winter, you're exposing your soil and your root systems to temperature swings that can be absolutely brutal. In Melbourne, Canberra, the Blue Mountains, Tassie, overnight temps can drop to 2 or 3 degrees in June and July. That cold doesn't just sit on the surface, it goes straight into the root zone. And roots that are sitting in frozen or near frozen soil, completely exposed, suffer damage that you won't see until spring, when your plants come back weak, patchy, or not at all. Even in Queensland and WA, where frost isn't the issue, removing mulch in autumn exposes soil to drying winter winds and heavy rain, which compacts bare soil, destroys its structure, and creates a surface that roots simply cannot penetrate come spring. The counterintuitive truth, autumn is exactly when you should be adding mulch, not removing it. Right now, before June hits, you want a layer of 5 to 8 centimeters of good organic mulch across every garden bed. Sugarcane mulch, lucerne, wood chip, whatever you have access to. That layer does 3 things over winter. It insulates the root zone from cold, it slowly breaks down and feeds the soil, and it suppresses the winter weeds that will otherwise take over your beds by August. The one rule: never let bare soil go into winter. If you can see soil, cover it. That's it. What to use? Sugarcane mulch, fast to break down, feeds the soil, cheap and widely available. Lucerne, higher in nitrogen, brilliant for veggie patches. Wood chip, slower to break down, better for natives and perennials, lasts longer. The moment, August. You pull back a corner of your mulch to check on the soil underneath. It's dark, moist, alive, full of worms. Your neighbor's bare bed is pale, compacted, lifeless. Come September, the difference in what grows in those 2 beds will be extraordinary. Australian natives have a reputation for being bulletproof, and in the right spot they absolutely are. I've got a grevillea in my garden that has not been watered, fertilized, or touched in 11 years. It flowers every single year. The honey-eaters find it every single morning. But put that same plant in the wrong spot, and it'll be dead inside 18 months. The mistake people make is assuming native means plant it anywhere and walk away. It doesn't. Australian natives are incredibly adapted, but they're adapted to specific conditions, and getting those conditions wrong is the single biggest reason natives fail in home gardens. Here's the most common one: planting natives in soil that's too rich. Most Australian native plants evolved in poor, sandy, low-phosphorus soils. When you plant them in heavily amended garden soil, or worse, fertilize them with standard garden fertilizer, you're giving them more than they can process. The roots get overwhelmed. The plant pushes excessive soft growth it can't sustain, and within a season or 2 it declines. The counterintuitive truth: the worse your soil, the better your natives will do. Sandy, low-nutrient, free-draining soil is not a problem for a grevillea or a banksia, it's home. The right conditions for the most common natives: grevillea, full sun, excellent drainage, no fertilizer ever, low phosphorus only if you must feed. Kangaroo poor, full sun, sandy or gravelly soil, dry summers, cut back hard after flowering. Banksia, full sun, acidic and sandy soil. Never plant near lawn fertilizer runoff. Callistemon, bottlebrush, one of the most adaptable, tolerates clay, loves sun, handles wet periods. Lamandra, almost indestructible, works in sun or shade. Drought-proof once established. The one rule: before you plant a native, look up where it grows naturally in Australia. Sandy coastal scrub, give it sandy, dry conditions. Rainforest edge, give it shade and moisture. The plant already knows what it needs, your job is to match it. The moment, a June morning, you're sitting on the veranda with a cup of tea. A spinebill lands on your grevillea, then a honey-eater, then another. You didn't do anything special, you just put the right plant in the right spot. Drop your state or territory in the comments right now, because a garden in Queensland is nothing like a garden in Tassie, and I want to make sure the advice I'm giving actually fits where you are. Tell me your state, and tell me which of these mistakes you've been making. I read every single one. This one is for every gardener in southern Australia, Victoria, SA, ACT, the tablelands of NSW and Tasmania especially. But Queensland and WA gardeners don't switch off, because this mistake has a version for you too. Most people think about frost the same way. It happens, plants die, nothing you can do. So they don't do anything. They don't protect plants. They don't plan for it. They just wait and see. And then July arrives and half the garden is black and collapsed, and they're spending money at the nursery all over again. Here's what most people don't know. Frost damage is almost entirely preventable, and May, right now, is when you do it. The plants most vulnerable to frost damage are the ones sitting exposed in low-lying areas where cold air pools, without any thermal mass nearby to moderate temperature. Cold air, like water, flows downhill and settles in the lowest points of your garden. If your tender plants are sitting in a frost pocket, a low spot, near a fence that blocks air movement, away from the warmth of walls or pavers, they will get hit harder than anything else in the garden. The counterintuitive truth, a plant near a brick wall or a paved area will often survive a frost that kills the same plant 2 meters away in open ground. The thermal mass of bricks and pavers absorbs heat during the day and slowly releases it overnight, keeping the immediate area 1 to 3 degrees warmer. That difference is everything on a 3-degree night. What to do right now in May? Move frost-sensitive plants in pots to sheltered spots against a north or west-facing wall. Cover vulnerable plants with frost cloth, hessian, or even old bed sheets on nights the forecast goes below 4 degrees. Do not use plastic sheeting directly on plants. It traps cold, not warmth. Mulch around the base of vulnerable plants. This insulates the root zone even if the top gets hit. For QLD and WA gardeners, your version of this mistake is ignoring humidity and fungal pressure in the cool months. Your nights aren't freezing, but they are damp. Plants sitting in poor airflow with wet foliage overnight are getting fungal disease right now. Space your plants, prune for airflow and water in the morning only, never at night. The moment, a July morning after a hard frost, you walk out and everything you protected is standing. Everything you didn't protect is gone. 5 minutes of preparation in May, that's all it takes. Look at your agapanthus, your liriope, your lomandra, your daylilies. If you've had them for 3 years or more and never touched them, they're overcrowded, and overcrowded clumps are slowly dying from the center out. Here's what happens as a clump-forming plant matures. The center gets older and more congested. The roots compete with each other. The soil in the middle gets compacted and exhausted. New growth only happens on the outer edges, and even that starts to decline. The plant looks like a donut, green and alive on the outside, dead and hollow in the middle. Most people look at this and think the plant is struggling because of the weather or the soil or some pest. They don't realize the fix is free, takes 20 minutes, and gives them 10 new plants in the process. The counterintuitive truth, dividing a plant doesn't weaken it, it resets it. You're taking a tired, overcrowded clump and turning it into multiple young, vigorous plants, each with its own fresh root space and access to soil nutrients. May is the perfect time to do this. The plant is slowing down, it's not in active growth, and it has the entire winter to establish before the spring push. How to divide in May? Dig the whole clump out. Don't be precious about it. Get a fork or spade under it and lift the whole thing. Use a sharp spade or even a saw to cut it into sections. Each section needs roots and foliage, that's all. Replant the sections with fresh compost worked into the hole. Water them in and apply mulch around the base. The leftover divisions, give them to neighbors. Plant them in a bare patch. Or pot them up. A lomandra or agapanthus division in a decent pot is worth $15 to $20 at any market. The one rule: if a clump-forming plant hasn't been divided in 3 years, it's overdue. May is your window. Plants that need dividing in May: agapanthus, daylily, liriope, lomandra, penstemon, salvia clumps, ornamental grasses. The moment, spring. Where you had one tired, hollow agapanthus, you now have 6 healthy ones spread across the garden, all of them flowering at once. You didn't spend a cent, you just moved what you already had. The Australians who hit subscribe in the middle of a video are the ones whose gardens look completely different by Christmas. Be one of them. Hit the button. It takes 2 seconds and it's always free. Nobody talks about winter weeds, and that's exactly why they win every year. While you're inside staying warm in June and July, your garden is not resting. Winter weeds, capeweed, oxalis, soursop, chickweed, wintergrass, they germinate in the cool, wet conditions of autumn. They establish quietly over winter. And by the time you walk back into your garden in September, ready to plant, they've already set seed and the next generation is in the ground. You spend half of spring pulling weeds instead of planting. Every year, the window to stop this is May, right now. Weeds are easiest to kill before they establish, before the roots go deep, before they set seed, before they spread. A single capeweed plant left in May becomes 50 plants by August. Pull it now and it's gone. The counterintuitive truth: the best weed control isn't herbicide, it's mulch plus timing. 5 centimeters of mulch laid now, combined with pulling anything that's already emerging, stops the majority of winter weeds from ever germinating. No chemicals, no effort in June, no disaster in September. What to do right now? Walk every bed. Pull anything that's emerged. Small weeds come out easily, big ones don't. Lay mulch immediately after. Don't leave bare soil exposed for even a week. Pay special attention to edges and paths. That's where weed seeds blow in and establish first. The one rule: 1 hour in May saves you 10 hours in September. That's the maths. The moment September, you walk into your garden and it's clean. Ready. The beds are clear, the mulch is settled, and everything you want to grow has space and light. That hour in May is why. Every May, across Australia, millions of dollars worth of seeds get thrown in the bin. Not literally, but effectively. Here's what happens. Your summer annuals, zinnias, marigolds, cosmos, basil, finish up and start looking ragged. You pull them out, toss them in the compost or the green bin, and head back to the nursery next October to buy the same plants again, at $4 to $8 a punnet, every season for the rest of your gardening life. But those plants were full of seeds. Seeds that are already perfectly adapted to your specific garden, your soil, your microclimate, your local conditions, and you threw them away. Saving seed is one of the oldest skills in gardening, and it's been almost completely lost in the last 2 generations because nurseries and seed companies benefit from you not knowing how to do it. The counterintuitive truth: seeds saved from your own garden outperform bought seeds over time, because every generation that grows in your specific soil is selecting for the conditions in your backyard. After 3 or 4 seasons of saving and replanting, you have a variety that is genuinely adapted to your garden in a way no commercial seed ever will be. How to save seed in May: let a few flowers go fully to seed. Don't deadhead everything. Leave the best, healthiest specimens to complete their cycle. Wait until the seed heads are completely dry and brown on the plant before collecting. Cut the seed head off. Shake seeds into a paper bag, not plastic. Plastic traps moisture. Label the bag with the plant name and the date. Store in a cool, dark, dry spot. A tin in a cupboard is perfect. Most seeds stay viable for 2 to 3 years stored this way. Easy seeds to save right now. Zinnia. Let the flower dry completely on the stem. Pull apart to reveal seeds. Marigold, the long thin seeds come straight out of the dried flower base. Cosmos, shake dry seed heads into a bag. Tomato, scoop seeds, rinse, dry on paper towel for a week, then store. Basil, let a few stems flower and set seed, shake into a bag when dry. The moment, October next year, you open a paper bag, tip out seeds you saved in May and plant them. Free. Yours. Already adapted to your garden. That is what self-sufficiency in a garden actually looks like. This is the one. This is the mistake that sits underneath almost every other mistake on this list. And almost no one talks about it, because fixing it requires you to actually stop and look at your garden differently. Most Australian gardeners treat their entire garden as one thing. One watering schedule for everything. One fertilizer for everything. One mulch for everything. Plant in one style. Care for everything the same way. And then they wonder why some areas thrive and others never do. Here's the truth: your garden is not one environment. It is 5 or 6 or 10 different microclimates, all existing in the same space. The spot against the north-facing brick wall gets 8 hours of direct sun and reflected heat. The corner behind the shed hasn't seen direct sun since 2019. The strip along the fence gets the first frost and the last to warm up in spring. The area near the downpipe gets waterlogged every time it rains. The patch under the eucalyptus has dry, root-filled, allelopathic soil, where almost nothing wants to grow. Every one of those spots needs a different plant and a different approach. The counterintuitive truth: the gardeners whose gardens look effortless aren't working harder, they're observing better. They've learned to read each part of their garden as its own ecosystem and match the plant to the place, not the other way around. Zero research on Australian home gardens consistently shows that the single biggest factor in plant survival isn't soil quality, watering frequency, or plant selection. It's placement. The right plant in the wrong spot will always struggle. The right plant in the right spot will almost always succeed. How to do this in May: walk your garden slowly. Actually look at each area. Ask yourself, how much sun does this spot get in winter versus summer? Does water pool here after rain? or does it drain quickly? Is this area sheltered or exposed to wind? Is it near a wall, a path, a tree with competing roots? Write it down if you need to. Make a rough sketch. Give each zone a name: sunny strip, shady corner, dry bed, wet patch. Then, when you're choosing plants, match the plant to the zone instead of just filling gaps. This one shift, this one change in how you think about your garden will do more for your results than any fertilizer, any watering system, or any advice about individual plants. The moment, imagine walking through your garden 12 months from now. Every corner doing something. The shady spot finally covered in something that belongs there. The dry strip no longer a graveyard. The sunny wall finally earning its position. Not because you worked more, because you looked more carefully once in May. That's the garden you deserve. Before we close, I want to know which one of these 11 mistakes hit closest to home. And I mean the one where you thought, that's me, that's exactly what I've been doing. Drop it in the comments, number and state. I read every single one and I reply when I can. Think of one person in your life who heads to Bunnings every spring and spends money on plants that are dead before Christmas. Send them this video. No message needed, just the link. You might save them a season of frustration. You just learned 11 mistakes that most Australian gardeners make every May and keep making, season after season, because nobody ever sat them down and explained what was actually going on. But you know now. The wrong plants at the wrong time, the prune that never happened, the mulch that got pulled instead of laid, the fertilizer that forced soft growth into winter, the clumps that needed dividing 3 years ago, the seeds that went in the bin, and the biggest one of all, treating every corner of your garden like it's the same place. None of this is complicated. None of it is expensive. All of it starts right now, in May, while the window is still open, because June is coming, and once winter sets in, this moment is gone for another year. Subscribe now if you haven't already. Hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And drop one comment below. Tell me your state. Tell me which mistake you're fixing first. And tell me what your garden looks like right now. This is your garden. This is your season. Go and do something with it.